First off, respectfully, rest in peace to Lance Reddick. Talented dude. I mean, we loved him in John Wick throughout the series. He's one of the best characters in it. We loved him in all the work. I mean, all the way back to The Wire and more so. But, rest in peace to him, sadly. But I wish him and his family the best. Jumping into John Wick 4, John Wick Chapter 4. Spoiler warning. The end of the John Wick series as it appears so far. I'm Joseph. Welcome to IJustWatched. Let's get into it. So right off the back, it's hard not to love the John Wick movies. They're fun movies. I mean, the first one is like the pinnacle of greatness when it comes to these. However, the world they build is great. I love the intricacies and such. It's funny because this movie I think is really good. Has a lot of great action scenes. Has some beautiful shots. Some unnecessary shots. Like, anytime, I mean, there's a lot of this that takes place in Paris. But anytime we're there, the Eiffel Tower was in the background. And as a person who has officially been there now, knows that not everywhere in Paris can you see the damn tower. All right. This is something I know now. I felt like an idiot because I was watching. I was like, man, I've been there. It was not that bumping at night. Where the police? What's going on? Because this world went from being this super secret underground world, and it just got to this point where there's these gunfights and everything in the streets, and there's no repercussions. Like, it kind of started to make this where it took place in this crazy real world. It was just super underground. So it was all around us, and we never knew, to being in our face, making it almost super fictional, super non-believable. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm not a fan of that transition. Because one of the things that we loved, or I know that I loved, was that it was this thing where like it was just happening around us, and it was just everyday things, but we didn't know it was there. Because we weren't part of that world. Here, it is very in your face everywhere, but then it's like nothing in the real world is like no one. Dude, there's a fight. I have to agree with the homie when we watched it. This movie, the fight scenes, they're good, but a lot of them were just dragged on. Like, this movie had maybe unnecessary amount of extra just length in it. You could have cut out chunks of it, and it still would have been a great movie. It would probably been a little bit better, a little bit smoother, a little bit easier ride, because there are parts of it where it just drags. The fight versus this Kingpin character, I forgot his name. It was the part at the table with like the poker and stuff was fun. It was intriguing, but then the chasing him and the fight, like, dude, that part in my opinion lasted way longer than it needed. The point I was getting at is they're shooting and killing, and there's bodies dropping, and people in the club are dancing, and you see them look at it, and they don't stop dancing, and then they just get back to dancing like nothing happened. And I'm like, okay, because I remember in the first, if something happened like that in the club, people dipped. They said, oh shit, people's dying, we leaving. And here they're just like, oh damn, it must be Tuesday. That part was weird. Again, the fight around the monument with the cars and stuff was cool. Again, unnecessarily long. Parts of it were dope. The idea was enjoyable. Nothing happened. All these gunfire, all these gunshots throughout Paris, throughout the city, all these crashes, all these things going on. No cops, no civilian like reaction. So it felt like the whole world is now in that underground world. Like, the whole world is that. Everyone's involved somehow, it felt like. Where before, when he's like in New York and such, you see him walking around civilians that just, paying they don't know what the hell's going on, but gunfire pops off, they run, they move, they freak out. Here, it was like, whatever, it's Paris, it's another Tuesday, maybe a Wednesday. I'm gonna take that baguette to go, please. So parts of that kind of took me out of it because it started to really drastically change the world that they were building. So I wasn't a fan of that. Overall, I mean, it's a good movie. I really like it. I think it's hella enjoyable. Of course, we get to the point where John Wick dies, and I put it in quotes because it's up in the air. Originally they announced 5. We're supposed to get 2 spin-offs, the Ballerina and the Continental, and I kind of thought this was going to end with him becoming the new concierge at the new rebuilt, reinstated, recressicated. That way he'd be left alone. He's protected. No one could touch him. You know what I'm saying? Like, won his freedom in essence. In that way, he sits down and he collapses, and then you see Winston and the king. I can't remember his name. The king, Lawrence Fishburne, damn it, talking about like, heaven or, where do you think he went, heaven or hell? And he's like, who knows? Because I also remember reading that Ana de Armas said in The Ballerina, we're gonna get interactions between her and John Wick, unless The Ballerina is a prequel, which I could understand. I definitely assume the Continental is gonna take place post, because another thing that kind of lost me in this movie was the amount of, we need to prep for the future of this world without John Wick. Like, the introduction of this new character, Shamir Anderson. They never give us, he calls himself Nobody, and he has a dog. What felt weird is like, okay, cool, he has his dog. It's like, immediately like, okay, so he's connected to Halle Berry's character somehow, or like they know each other somehow. Who is he? But he's just, throughout the whole movie, no matter what, he can find John Wick stupid easy. I was assuming it was the dog, but this dude was traveling like globally, so this dog's nose is stupendous. Looked like the exact same breed. It did a lot of the exact same thing except in English instead of I forgot what language she has to speak in the other movie, but here he's like nuts, and I was like, ay yo mio. His character just was weird. He just showed up and there was no explanation. He just like, yeah, he's just there, and he's always behind John Wick, and he's as good as John Wick almost, but not really. And then Kane, who's a cool character with Donnie, and dude, I'm not gonna lie, when he just did his It Man shit on that one dude, I was like, bro, give me more of that, please. We didn't get more of that, so I was sad. I liked his character. I like the connection they built between his character, Shimazu, if I'm saying it correctly. It's a Sonata. That dude's a great talent, but those two characters and John Wick, like they were a trio, like they knew each other. They had a certain mutual respect. They were friends. They were brothers, and the way they played the Marquis, and I gotta give it to Bill Skarsgård. My boy can act. I enjoyed his character. He's a smart fucking character in this movie. That being said, the Marquis felt unnecessary. It really, because at the end of the third one, we're gonna burn it down. It's not like they're gonna go down the route of knocking off the 12 heads of the round table, or literally destroying the table and implementing a new democracy or a new government, so to speak. That's what it felt like they were doing. We get a different elder because they executed the other elder because of what John Wick did, and then he kills him. He doesn't get his ring back. He just said it was gone, but I was like, we knew he was gonna get his ring back, so that kind of felt, it also felt unnecessary. Like, okay, if he didn't get his ring back, why were we there? Like, I don't know, it was little things like that just could have kind of been taken out of the movie and still would have flowed easily, smoothly. Overall, it's a really good movie. It's better than a lot of other movies. The action is dope. The little after or post-credit scene between her and Kane, the lead up, what does it mean? I mean, we know what it means, but it's interesting to see that. They're clearly world building, and I think that's good, but I think where they lost it a bit, or where it started to get out of hand a bit, is in the fact that they were so focused on that they were losing the attention that was on John himself. Because there's parts of this movie where he's not even in it, and we're just watching someone else fight. Like I said, there were some beautiful shots, some unnecessary ones. The things I also didn't like, I say it was a great, and I'm like, I didn't like this, but the radio, when she announced it on the radio, she was like, blah, 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 John Wick, good luck, this much money. And I was like, cool. But then she kept announcing and kept announcing. I was like, bro, just let it happen. If you wanted to implement that, let her announce it and just throw on music. But the music was so on the nose that it became an issue. And she had the play-by-play. Okay, cool. You missed up on street 74. He's now on 75. Y'all missed him there. Y'all blew up my favorite bakery. We're on 76 now. And like, the play-by-play was unnecessary. And she was like, ooh, the man in black. Like, it was just like, it just was unnecessary to me. It kind of took me out of that bit. So I wasn't a fan of that. The bird's eye view inside the firefight, I say that because they had dragon's breath, was cool. Also, it started getting to the point where I was like, man, this looked like a video game more than a movie, because it just stayed there for too long. So just little things like that. I think if you'd have shortened bits of it, it would have been a smoother ride overall. But I say that still saying it's a good movie. You're going to enjoy it. I recommend you watch it. I think it's actually very rewatchable. The series is rewatchable. I'm still interested to see where it goes, but I also kind of expected a little bit better for John Wick's ending. We'll see what happens with it. I want to hear your opinions, comments, questions, concerns. How do you feel about it? Which of the 4 is your favorite? I mean, it's number 1, but I want to hear your opinion, your comments, your questions, your concerns. I love hearing from you. But until next time, stay safe, be well, y con mucho amor. Adios.